Hello and welcome to this episode of the Game Plan Podcast by College Baseball Advisors. On this podcast, we try to talk all things as it relates to baseball development and recruiting specifically. I'm your host, Wayne Mizone. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach. For the last 4 years, I've been running College Baseball Advisors, where I help kids and parents navigate the craziness of the recruiting process. For more information about that, please visit my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's episode, we have Bill Cilento, who is the associate head coach at Wake Forest University. Bill, we had a great talk starting off with, I did some research to find out that tonight his brother is playing or coaching in the state championship for football in his hometown in Maryland, where Bill is from, went to Sherwood High School. So we talked about his growing up in Maryland, the process that got him to go to Siena, which is, significantly far away up north, to play at Siena, play baseball. And then he started coaching at Siena. So we discussed that, of course. Then he went to coach at New Orleans, where he first met Tom Walter, who is now his head coach at Wake Forest. So we talked about his time in New Orleans and then going to coach 3 years at Brown, where I first, interacted with Bill. Since then, we've done a couple of coaches conventions and such together. And not to mention his Wake Forest teams have pummeled when I was coaching at Sacred Heart, our pitchers. I was the pitching coach. That was not fun series playing at Wake Forest. But we then talked about him going to Wake Forest and his time there, and a lot of things, obviously, about Wake Forest. We talked about the university itself, the baseball program, the things they look for when they're recruiting. And then, kind of most importantly, I think on this podcast is how these coaches find the players that they're looking for. By what means do they track down these players? I think that's what people want to know. Obviously, players need the talent, but then how do you connect with these schools that are a fit for you? How do the two sides come together? Again, I'd like to remind you that this podcast is made possible by the sponsorship of the World Baseball Coaches Convention, which takes place every year at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. This year it's January 15th to 17th, 2026. This is an event in its 23rd year. I've been to at least 20 of these events. There's great presenters. There's great people in the audience. Awesome conversations that happen in the hallways or around the casino talking baseball. The venue is great. The vendors that are at the event are awesome. There's a batting cage demonstration. There's an infield demonstration. So it's really an awesome event. A lot of the podcast guests I've had on have been past or upcoming speakers at the event. So please visit baseballcoachesclinic.com for more information about that convention. Without further delay, here is my talk with Bill Cilento, Associate Head Coach at Wake Forest University. All right, as I said to you, Bill, before I hit record, I'm in the remote offices here for College Baseball Advisors. I'm in about 10 minutes outside of Lake Placid. My dog and I on a little work
Oh,
retreat, so it's awesome. And I'm pumped that you could join me. And I know you get, especially being at Wake, you're going to get these demands of podcasts and a million things. So I appreciate you taking the time to join me. I like to do some research for this, and I'm going to throw you a curveball question or comment right off the bat. I did enough research to know that your brother is coaching for the state championship of football tonight. Am I correct?
he sure is. Yeah, no, tomorrow night.
Oh, it's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night
Okay.
at Navy. So my brother is the high school football coach at Sherwood High School in Maryland, where both of us went. Both of us were fortunate to win football state championships there, and he's trying to bring one home for the first time in a while.
All right. So hold on. So I knew you're from Sherwood, from Maryland. So, but I didn't know what you just said. So first of all, who's older?
He's 2 years older than me.
So he won a state championship there playing football.
He did.
You won a state championship playing football.
I
And
did.
now, this many years later, he's coaching tomorrow night for a state championship.
That's correct. Yeah. So he won a '95 state championship. He was the quarterback. I was on that team. I was kind of little used left defensive end on that team, and then I was fortunate to take over as quarterback in '96 and win a state championship. It was a good thing we were surrounded by like 9 Division I guys, so it was pretty good handling it all.
That's good. But that's interesting though. You went from a defensive end and then you took over at QB. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was not a very good defensive end. I got to be honest with you.
Well, this kind of leads to what I normally start off when I get people on is I obviously everyone who comes and joins me is a baseball guy, but I always like to find out did they play other sports growing up. So obviously football was I mean playing through high school was a big part of your youth sports experience.
Yeah, so I was a three-sport athlete: football, basketball, baseball. My dad was a high school coach and athletic director. Coached all three sports. So we grew up in a household where that was almost it was the norm. My sister was I got a younger sister. She was an athlete too, lacrosse and some things. I think it breeds a lot of things, but I think in today's world, finding competition is key, and I think the multi-sport athlete is one way to do it. It's not the only way. We've proven
Right.
there's other ways, but I think the multi-sport athlete is one way to do that.
It's funny. I generally don't bring up particular people, players on the podcast, but since you just said you played three sports, I know you have a player, Ryan Prezano, who played with my son, talk about a legit three-sport kid in high school. And I guess that's something we'll talk about, as we get later. But is that something you guys like? Do you try to find guys that were multi-sport guys in high school, or do you just say, hey, we're looking for good players, whatever their background is, we'll take?
I certainly like multi-sport athletes when we can get them. It doesn't mean that you have to be. I think there's serious advantages to it. I think that the reward far outweighs the risk of injury. I mean, I think that's when people specialize. I think there's two main reasons. One, they're the risk of injury, so they like to stay away from sports where there's high contact, football, hockey. Well, I would suggest that those sports bring out toughness in kids that's pretty unique nowadays. Or they specialize because they try and get kind of a leg up on their peers, and train year round. I think one of the disadvantages to that for a rotational athlete, in the sport of baseball, you rotate. Well, you turn in one direction. If you're a right-handed hitter, you turn one way. If you're a right-handed pitcher, you turn one way. Left-handed, vice versa. So I think there's some injury risk that shows up later in life. So maybe you avoid it earlier in life, that it shows up later in life. Um, but I certainly, I think competition brings out the best in people. It's one of the things that we pride our program in. It's one of our core pillars. So I think we try and compete in a variety of ways. So multi-sport athletes, yes, some we certainly seek. But again, I would say that it doesn't mean that's what it has to be. Um, so
Yeah, it's interesting when I get a potential kid that I'm going to work with in recruiting, and he's like 14 years old, and I'm trying to find out his sports background, and he tells me at 14 he's a PO. First of all, to each their own, but what I say to him is just what you said, Bill. I go, dude, you got to compete, man. I don't care if you play ping pong or one-on-one hoops or like come up with some kind of competition because that's what brings out the best in you. When you're a pitcher, frankly, you don't compete as much as a shortstop because you're just not in there as much. So you gotta hone that competition skill. You're right, regardless of whether you're playing three sports or you're playing one, that's still something that has to be brought out.
well, everybody likes winners, right? And I think that's a characteristic. And I think those traits transcend sport. Why do I coach? At the end of the day, I coach because I feel like I can make kids elite winners. They can become people that are highly successful in life. Baseball is just a vehicle to
Yeah.
it. So I think if in that scenario, I think you're spot on. Like, how many ways can we get you to compete? Can we get you to compete at ping pong? Can we get you? You walk through our building that I'm sitting in right now. We have shuffleboard, ping pong, cornhole, cards, Fortnite. I mean, of course, you got to have the video games up, right?
Right.
Fortnite. You got every piece, wall ball, and you have leaderboards and competitions everywhere. I think it's a way you can separate yourself in today's world. Everybody gets a trophy. I have four daughters. My two youngest daughters are 5 and 8, and the 5 and 8 year olds, they go and they get a trophy for everything. That's the
Right.
world we've been. It's the world we've been brought up in, or these kids have been brought up in. So if you find ways to prioritize winning and you learn the little things that it really takes to win to separate yourself, you can put yourself in elite company.
Yeah.
Um,
two things. One funny one. Um, for a little while in my coaching career, like about a 2 year period, I think I stole this idea from somebody, but I made the warm up for the pitchers spike ball,
Mhm.
and it got them loose, but it got them to compete in a warm up, and they loved it. So I love everything that you said about all the opportunities your guys have to compete. Secondly, you got 4 daughters.
Four daughters. Yeah. So
Woo-wee!
at
Dude, you get
17 down to five.
you go to work every day. That's the easy part of the day, probably, right? You get
No
to
doubt.
work with all those hitters and they do what you say. At home, you probably got no say, you know.
No, no doubt. I got very fortunate to marry someone who's highly organized, highly caring, highly thoughtful, and fortunately, she lets me do a lot of what I do from a professional standpoint. Being a college baseball coach nowadays is more demanding than ever from a time standpoint. The recruiting grind never stops. You're recruiting new players, your players, transfer portal players, you name it. So. And then you're trying to get your guys better too. So the time demands are not short. Um, so yeah, it's home's a challenge. The good news is when I do get home, I get looked at pretty nice. My wife, I think, gets frustrated sometimes because I get the benefit of the doubt more so than she does.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's funny just what you said. It's interesting. I mean, I've been out of coaching 3.5 years. Every day I miss it. I just that ping to coach, right? And then I get the other side of what you just said. I go, boy, it's an all-in job. It's really difficult to have kind of other things outside of it, especially at the level you're at. But no, there's no perfect job or no perfect career. And you're right. At your level, this is not a 35-hour, 40-hour work week job. If that's what you're looking for, definitely don't get into college baseball coaching for sure.
No doubt, and it's yeah. I mean, it's run some of the best in the game in all sports out of it, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah,
look at guys like Tony Bennett who are in their prime who walked away from it for some because of some of the challenges. But the flip side to that reward is I think it keeps you young.
totally,
It's something you
totally.
love to do. I mean, I worked it for a short period in accounting, and my wife's an accountant. It's no knock on the accounting world, but I went to work every day, and it was a job.
Yeah,
I think every day, and as a college coach, it brings new challenges, but it also brings joy. And there's no better joy than seeing your kids grow up, and they come through this program and they're great fathers and husbands. I mean, we have I don't know, we have 10 or 12 guys from big leaguers and Rhett Lauder and Nick Kurtz that are back here right now to 8 or so minor leaguers. They have kids, they have families, some of them, seeing them be successful in life, not only on the baseball field is one of the most rewarding things ever. And like I said, why do you get into this thing? I got into this thing because you can make the world a little bit better place,
you can.
one relationship at a time. And I'm very fortunate I get to do that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better, more impactful job than being a coach. There's no question. And then, it's funny, even I'm sure so satisfying is maybe a player no one ever heard of. Maybe he got 15 at bats his whole Wake Forest career, but that kid had a great experience and you made that kid better. And that kid is going to remember you because of what you did for him. It's not just the guys that go on that dominate that are guys that you impact, which is really great. And correct me if I'm wrong, your brother teaches accounting in high school too?
He
Oh,
teaches business.
baby. Look, what don't
Yeah.
I know, Bill? What
He's
don't
an
I know?
accountant too. Listen, we got accountings in our blood. We're math people.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Um, a huge question for you now is Mr. Three Sport guy at Sherwood, what in the world got you up to Siena? What was
yeah,
the process that got you to Siena?
yeah. So I was lucky. If I'm being honest, I was a mildly recruited player. It was a different time frame.
Totally.
Um, but back then you took your 5 official visits. I took my 5 official visits. I went to James Madison. I went to Maryland where my dad had played up the street, kind of some schools that were looked at, probably in a higher light than Siena. But the deal was I made a deal with my mom, and she would come on all 5 official visits with me if she got to pick one. So I got to pick four, and she got to pick one. And she chose Siena. And And when I went there kind of as an afterthought. I went there saying to myself, I'm not going here. I'll go up there but I did have the longest relationship with a coach there. Um, so I went on my other visits. Siena was my last one. It was cold when I went. It was like, I'm a baseball player, you
Right.
go and I'm like, what do we have? Yellow. It feels like it's going to snow here. I'm from Maryland.
Right.
I'm going to go north to play baseball. Um, and I don't know, I thought in my heart I was going to JMU. They had some turmoil in their coaching staff. So I dragged it out a little bit. And it kind of cost me some opportunities other places. And I'll never forget sitting in my basement one day. I was just sitting there by myself and I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I'm going to go prove everybody wrong. I'm
Mm,
going to go to Siena. Nobody thinks I'll go to Siena. I'm going to go there and I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And I committed there almost out of spite.
mm.
Um, Out of spite for the world. I was just not in a, not thinking about it the right way. It ended up being the greatest decision I ever made in my life. I met my wife there. My best friends in the world are all my college teammates from Siena. Got a lifelong relationship in Tony Rossi, who was the head coach there for 50 years. Um, I've been at Wake for 16 years, and loyalty is not a thing of college sports
Mm,
nowadays.
mm.
Loyalty is your next paycheck in college sports. If you haven't followed what's going on in football right now,
Oh my goodness gracious.
it's unbelievable. But he instilled that in me. I've stayed at Wake Forest for the time that I've stayed because of that. Like it's something I value.
Mm.
So it ended up being one of the greatest decisions I ever made. I got done there. I went into accounting, like I said, for 2 months. I loved it on the 1st and the 15th. I got that paycheck. I was, man, but I didn't feel it was a job. I didn't feel like I loved it. I didn't feel like I could do it for life. Fortunate that Tony Rossi called me that summer, offered me $1,750 to come be the
Woohoo!
recruiting coordinator. I didn't blink an eye. And I went up
Wow.
there and um, the rest is history. I've had a chance to see the world coaching. I've had a chance to impact so many people. I'm in touch with kids that I coach. I've been doing this, 25-ish years now. That I coached 25 plus years ago. You're getting old, coach, when your former teammates and kids that when you first got into coaching, their kids are reaching out to you about recruiting them. That's
Yeah,
when you know
yeah.
you're getting old.
Yeah, you've been doing it a while. I mean, boy, that is a great story. I mean, that is really interesting. I thought what you were somewhat going to say was, well, you went to Siena and it won you over because I know many times kids think of schools they're not interested in, then they actually go visit, and it seems much different than they, expected on the visit. Um, but boy, isn't that a life lesson? You win a bit as a spite, as you said, and turned out to be a life altering decision that maybe is the greatest decision you've made. That's really awesome.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't change for the world. And it was out of spite, but it was also, I mean, it did win me over because what I learned, and I still use it to this day, is that relationships are more important than any building. It's
Mm,
more important than any weather forecast. It's more important than anything a college can offer. Um, because you're going to go through struggle. You're going to get to a place wherever you go. And if you go to the right place, you're going to fail some. And if you're with people you trust and you've built relationships and you believe in what they believe in, you're going to get to the other side of it. And
right.
that's how development really happens. Like everybody, at Wake Forest, we're known as this place with intricate development. We have the pitching lab, we have ridiculous technology, we have so many resources to help our players.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's the relationships that sustain it, because you're going to fail, and those things can't put belief back in you.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a trust in that. So um, it was perfect for me. I encourage everybody. Here's the other thing about Siena. I walked on campus from day one I played, and we
Right.
were successful. We won. I mean, we
Yeah.
won two MAC championships back then. Went to the NCAA tournament. Winning was important. I learned to play baseball the right way, like to win.
Right. Right.
um, so, but I walked on campus. I played. I missed 3 games in my college career when I tore
Wow.
my ankle my junior year. I played every day. I refused to come out. I think there's a toughness in that. So it was perfect for me. Um, and I think that's the challenge. All anybody faces now in this recruiting world is everybody's got great stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's got great things and buildings, and the investment in college sports is unlike anything else I've ever seen. The boom in it. You look at it from coaches' salaries to the facilities there are to you name it.
Yeah.
But you need to find people you trust, and that's the real fit. Is find relationships. The hard part, the challenging part, is you got to find relationships that are going to sustain. We've backed up the recruiting process a little bit. That's helped with that.
Right.
So it's now a 6-year window, right? So you got 2 years on the front end and 4 or 3 years if you're a draft, or two. We got a lot of sophomore eligible guys now, but a 4 to 6 year window. Whereas that was the big issue when you deal into the early commit, is the kid would commit as a ninth grader. Well, by the time they got to college, that was already 4 years, and that coaching staff is turned over. That
Right.
fit that you found isn't the same. It's
Right.
not the same, right? Well, what is it going to be at your senior year, 8 years later?
Right.
Um, it's not the same. So we've backed it up. I think that's been helpful. But the flip side to that is we go through this speed dating deal now where you don't really get a chance to really form the lasting relationships. You got to make a quick decision, and that can be dangerous too.
Yeah, no, it's very well said. I wanted to ask about something else about Siena. I know, for certainly for a while, Siena, the assistants, as you said, the jobs didn't pay well. It was a great starting place for many people. There's a lot of really good coaches that have come through there, and I also know Coach Rossi would. It wasn't like he was babying you to coach. He gave you a lot of responsibility. What a great first job to have.
Yeah, well, and you don't think it at the time. You don't understand it. You don't know it. I mean,
Right.
I was 21, going on 22 years old when I took the job, and first day I got a Word document, and it had my summer planned out,
Mm,
every day, from Binghamton to New York to Scranton, Pennsylvania to out on the Cape to wherever recruiting wise. He literally planned out my day, and the greatest part is you had no budget, right? So we had a gas card that was given to us by the school. We had a school car, but you weren't staying in a hotel. So you would get up at 3 or 4 in the morning. And if you know anything about Coach Ross, he doesn't sleep. 3 or 4 in the morning, drive 4.5 hours, sit through an event all day long, to drive home, to get up at 4 o'clock the next morning to drive the opposite direction. But you learned what hard work really was. It's one thing if Tony Rossi would give you that spreadsheet and say, hey, do this, and then he went to the beach.
right. Right. Right.
He would, you're getting on the road at 4 a.m. and you're doing your staff meeting via phone on the way to the event because he's in the office.
Right. Right.
Um, and that's how he lived. So I think I think coaches, you said it earlier, but you're so impactful in so many different ways. He was super impactful to me because he taught me two of the most valuable lessons that I live by today. One was loyalty, which we talked about, but two, what really, really it takes.
Yeah.
And it's the conversation I have with our players today is, everybody talks about winning and wants to win. There's nobody that gets into sport that doesn't want to
Of
win,
course.
but few understand what it really takes, and even less are willing to make the sacrifices that requires. As you go up the food chain, that gets harder and harder because talent no longer can separate you.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's well said. You were at Siena ultimately how many years
I was at
coaching?
Siena 4 as a player, 4 as a coach, 8 years.
So 4 years coaching, and then the next job was at New Orleans.
University of New Orleans.
Okay. So you have an interesting background, my friend. You go from Maryland, you go to New York. How did the move to New Orleans? I'm assuming you didn't have had you been down to Louisiana ever in your life?
Never in my life. It's interesting. Coach Walter, who I coached for here, was the head coach at George Washington University. And when I was at
Right.
Siena, we went head to head on a bunch of recruits. And so he got to know what Siena was a little bit. He didn't really know who I was, but he got to know what Siena was. And he had an opening at George Washington, and we had a conversation about possibly coming to George Washington. And in the midst of it, he got the University of New Orleans job. And he just said, "Hey, man, you interested?" I said, "Look, the car's packed. It's just whether or not I go 7 hours to DC or I go 24 hours to New Orleans. You tell
Right,
me."
right,
And I think at that point, Coach Rossi had kind of encouraged me. He knew, hey, it's time to,
right.
kind of broaden your horizons a little bit. The one thing about Siena, it's a great starting point, but you look at it over the years, and it's a lot of guys that stayed for 1 year.
Right, right,
Very few that stayed for 4.
right.
But again, that loyalty piece was big to me, and went to the University of New Orleans, which again, you learn a lot of things along the way. It was a blessing. I got to see what it felt like to really go through adversity after our first year. Hurricane Katrina came through.
Mm.
And we had just brought in 22 players, and within a week of them being on campus, players from all over the country, and actually out of the country, we had a Canadian kid, from all over the country, spent all that time recruiting and building a class. Within a week, they get Hurricane Katrina, and the city is devastated.
Yeah.
We don't have a fall. We went to New Mexico. We spent our fall, my second year at the University of New Orleans, in Las Cruces, New Mexico. You want to talk about odd places to be.
The ball flies there, baby.
Ball flies, and try
Flies.
bringing recruits to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and selling them on New Orleans. So sometimes the blessings in the adversity, sometimes the blessings in the struggle, and we did that. I mean, the University of New Orleans was a very proud program. They're the first team from the state of Louisiana to go to the College World Series, but then they had fallen on hard times. They'd had some pretty good draft picks when we got there, but they really struggled. They weren't making the conference tournament. We were able to quickly rebuild that, and it was great for me. 2+ years there that I wouldn't give for the world. And then life happened in terms of my, getting married. My wife now, who I was at Siena with, was still living in Albany. She was set to move to New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina came through, and we weren't married yet. So I had to make a life decision, unfortunately. So we only got to spend a little bit more than 2 years there, but it was well worth it.
Obviously, then the move from there was to Brown. Um, Again, was that just a connection? Was that how did the Brown job come about?
If you haven't figured out, I do some crazy things.
I have. I love it.
So Brown, here's the reality. I was at the University of New Orleans. My wife was, my girlfriend at the time I was set to propose to basically was like, "Hey, look, we can't raise a family in post-Katrina New Orleans," which
Right.
she was right. New
Yep.
Orleans it was going to take some time to recover. I love the university. The university at the same time was going through struggles financially.
Right.
It lost their student base. Their athletic department was funded through student fees, and it lost
Right.
their student base.
Right.
So there was a tremendous amount of uncertainty as what the University of New Orleans was and
Totally.
was going to be. And Coach Walter, I sat in at the time, and I was out recruiting, and he's like, "Look, I don't know where this goes. I don't know where we'll be. And I can't in good faith tell you, hey, you got to come back here." And so it was August 1st. And when this happened, and, I was stuck. I was like, okay, like, do I want to go back into accounting? Not really. So I jump on one of those websites back then that used to have the jobs, and there was
Yep.
literally one baseball job open at the time, Brown University. And I had met Merrick Durbinski, and Merrick is an interesting character. You're gonna have fun playing at Brown, and I knew that about him. And I called him, just cold called him. And I said, "Hey, Merrick, here's the deal. I'm at the University of New Orleans. I can't stay here. I don't know what the future holds here. You're the only job open. Any interest?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's yours." I loaded the car up. I drove to Providence, Rhode Island, sight unseen. And again, sometimes it ends up being a blessing. It was one of the best, worst decisions I ever made. Some would say. Met some pretty incredible people. Won Ivy League championships. When Brown was not a very highly sought after job. I mean, they finished dead last in the Ivy League pretty much every year, and one Ivy League championship. I think in my 3 years there, we played 60 league games. I think I was like something we were something
Yeah.
like 42 and 18 in
Wow.
60 league games, and had draft picks, have kind of some of the most impactful people in my life. I coached there.
Mm.
Uh, one thing you learn at a place like Brown is the people that you are going to coach. There's different styles. You have the ones that are really baseball oriented, that love the degree, but it's really a baseball thing. But the
Yeah.
vast majority of them, it's academic oriented, and baseball is a hobby, so to say, back then. So learning how to engage those types of people, and get them involved and buy into a system of what it takes to win and what it's about. Um, and then watching those people go on and be successful. I mean, we have, some of those kids I coach there. One of them is way up the food chain at Morgan Stanley. Another one is, I mean, highly successful in corporate real estate in New York City. I mean, they're some of the most successful people in their professions that I know. So I was very fortunate at Brown.
I mean, and Brown is, it's interesting for people that don't know. Obviously, people know Brown's an Ivy League, but Providence is a cool area. The
Awesome.
university is great. And it is true. I have seen a change in the Ivies, and you may as well have also. It used to be exactly as you said. You'd have some dirt dog baseball kids, but you had other kids that they were there for the degree, the education, and baseball was whatever to them. I see it changing now in the Ivies. I see them getting a
Without a
lot
doubt.
more baseball dirt dog kids. I think the conference has improved in that way.
Without a doubt. I mean, look, and I think the shrinking of rosters is going to help that too.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a rebalancing in that. I can tell you, we've played Ivy League schools here. We played Harvard a couple of years ago. They had two really good drafts. I mean, two of the better arms we saw all year. We saw Princeton, and they had this right-hander, this kid Episcope, that was that was as good as I've seen. I mean, we were fortunate to beat them, and they had a reliever who's now at Vanderbilt, a kid Faulkner, who I mean, those two guys. We faced those two guys in one game. It was like we didn't face that all year. So
Right.
I think Ivy League baseball has blossomed.
Definitely.
I think they've invested in facilities like they've done in other places. I think it's become important. I think they've figured out the value in it. They're seeing, and I think this is not only Ivy League schools everywhere, but I think Ivy League schools are seeing this especially. Like the kids that are involved in sports, that learn some of those qualities, are becoming highly successful in life, even more than some that weren't.
Yes,
I think
agreed.
the hit rate is much higher. So I think the Ivy League is a great option for so many. Shoot, one of our best players last year was a kid, Matt Scannell, is a Princeton grad, is who I've known his dad, Timmy, forever. Who was a highly successful coach down in Texas, and I think the Ivy League is a great option for so many.
I mean, I remember it's maybe three times when I was coaching at Sacred Heart, we played at your place at Wake, which damaged my staff's ERA at that point.
No
But
doubt.
I do remember
I
you
think
had
it's cavernous. It's cavernous.
yeah. You remember you had some grad transfers from the Ivies. I mean, part of it was a whole COVID thing, which I don't want to sidetrack us, but right, they lost a couple of years and then they could come in. But boy, like I said, you had some impact transfers from the Ivy Leagues in your time there. But so let's talk about Wake. Um, it was from Brown that you went to Wake, correct?
It was, yes.
Okay, so that's a whole bunch of years ago now, Bill. What year are we talking?
16 years. I don't know, 2009, right? It's
In
the fall,
2009.
summer of 2009.
So, I mean, was that move, which seems obvious, hey, I'm going to go to a great university and a great baseball program. At this point, I'm assuming, right, if I have my ducks in a row here, Coach Walter had taken over and now you guys reconnect at Wake.
Yeah, and that was it. I mean, about relationships and Coach Walter the year before I thought was getting the Auburn job. We had some discussions about it, and then he got the Wake job, and it was really a no brainer. Kind of same thing, sight unseen. I had been to Wake before, and ironically, we had just played them in a regional when I was at Brown. We'd lost to them in a regional
Mm.
in Round Rock in Texas. And UC Irvine had come out of that regional, but so it was somewhat familiar, but That was 2 years prior, and they coming off all hard times. It struggled to make the ACC tournament. And honestly, the reason they were in the ACC, or the NCAA tournament that year is they got to the ACC final, and they wouldn't have been in the ACC tournament if it wasn't one of those weird years where they took everybody in the conference to the
Right.
conference tournament.
Right.
Um, so, yeah, sight unseen. Get on the ground, and the funny part is I took the job, and I didn't come to Winston Salem for about 3 weeks. I literally just got on a plane in Providence and flew to California and Texas and you name it.
Recruit.
Because the idea was we had to rebuild the roster.
Right.
They weren't even at the full complement of players at that
Wow.
point. So we knew that it was going to be a long haul, and tried to try and make the right decisions, and instill the right systems to become a national championship type team.
Um, Most people listening, watching this, Wake Forest is a household name. But if you don't mind, just a little bit about the university, having been there 16 years. Tell us just a little bit about the university and then a little bit about the baseball program.
Yeah, the simple is that it's a really good blend of high end academics. It's not far from the Ivy League, high end academics and high end baseball. Wake is unique. When you deal with the Power Four schools, Wake is the smallest. Wake is roughly 5,200 undergraduate
Mm,
students.
I didn't know that.
So it's a small liberal arts school in a great part of the country in North Carolina, kind of the heart of North Carolina. You're about an hour and 15 minutes from Charlotte, hour and 10 minutes from Charlotte, 50 minutes from the Raleigh-Durham area. You're, 2 hours to the ski slopes. You're 3 hours to the coach. You're 30 minutes to Lake Norman, which is one of the coolest lakes in the world. So it's a really cool blend of where location, really cool blend of academics, very highly sought after. Ironically, accounting degree. The business school is very good.
Right.
Um,
There's that
you
accounting
know,
again.
Health and exercise science, and you know, but it's. I think it's unique in today's world. I think COVID made universities reevaluate how they go about things,
Amen.
and COVID brought universities to this online world. And so many of our competitors, for example, they don't really ever sit in a classroom. They wear a jersey, but they take classes like me and you are doing on Zoom.
Mm,
It's done online. I think that's become such an easy access thing, and we do it a little bit. That's great for our pro guys, but in general, Wake, you got to go to class, and you're in smaller classes and smaller class sizes. So it's something you got. Wake is one of those places you come on campus, you either fall in love with, or you're like, you know what, I want 100,000 seat football stadium, and I want frat parties and all that stuff. Wake is just not that. Not that there's not a frat party around here every now and again. Don't get me wrong.
right. Right.
Um, and then from a baseball side, I think we've become known as the hub for player development across college, baseball. Been very fortunate. I mean, you look at the last 5 years, you got 9 first rounders. The last 3 years, you got 5 first rounders. But again, like you were talking about before, so much of that is about not those guys. Those guys are, easy in some ways. Now, the great part is like you look at those 9 first rounders, and of those 9, one was a high school draft.
Wow. That's impressive.
And they all had different paths. I mean, we had a first rounder 2 years ago, and a kid, Seaver King, who went to Wingate, who went to a Division II school out of high school. We had Nick Kurtz, who was the AL Rookie of the Year. He was on a high school team that had 4 drafts and a first round pick, and he wasn't even drafted.
Wow.
So I think, what we do is it's a really good blend of player development and a culture and an environment that teaches you what it really takes to win.
Yeah. I mean, that's really well said. One of the things I remember from being there, is outside of left field, assuming it's still there. It's been a little while. You have your strength and conditioning set up.
We do.
And how neat is that to be able to have a place where guys can lift? But even I remember talking to your strength coach, like during even a pregame BP, maybe a couple of pitchers are out there lifting, and it just seems to make great use of time having your strength facility be basically right outside the outfield fence.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's a huge asset to us. Again, we're fortunate during COVID that they were worried about weight room space and indoor spaces. So we converted an old visitors clubhouse into a weight room. I call it the dungeon. It's not, it's got the bells and whistles, right? We have, iPads that we worry about bar speed and power production and all that stuff in elite form. But in general, it's pretty bare bones. It's a cinder block building that we've turned into a weight room, but it's probably the most useful piece of player development space that we have.
Isn't that it? Look at that. That's really interesting. First of all, I did not know it was converted, and I didn't realize that COVID had, but that's kind of genius. And you know what? Bare bones and that kind of feeling, people want that. Like it's nice to, you don't need all the foo-foo things. You need a place where you can grind, and that's where they can do it, right?
100%, 100%.
All right, let's talk one thing about you specifically. You may want to talk about this, you may not. Obviously, been there at 16 years. You've, got promoted to associate head coach. You're an awesome person. You're a great coach. You guys have had tremendous success. There is
Can
a
you talk to my
number of
wife?
That's funny. You could leave. You could ta have taken other jobs. Maybe someday you will take another job. But is it a matter of a couple of things? Of number one, you and Coach Walter have such a good relationship that you can be you and almost run things the way you want in your groups. That's number one. And number two, you got a pretty good gig. I mean, here you are at Wake Forest in a great program. Why do I want to leave? Like, so what's kept you there 16 years at Wake?
Relationships. It's easy. Look, I tell players when I recruit them all the time, look, you can probably go somewhere and get somebody that's maybe a little bit more technical than I am. But here's what I can tell you. You're not going to get somebody that's going to care for you more.
Mm.
And the way you show care is you give them time, right? And if you're always got one foot in the door and you're worried about the next job, you're not doing that. You're not really invested in your players. Yeah, all those things that you talked about matter. The trusting relationship with Coach Walter, being with him a long time, I think he has a great understanding of who I am, what I'm about, how I'm going to go about it. I think I have that about him too. Like I
Right.
understand who he is. I can trust what he says. I can trust that's going to happen. We share a belief system also. I think that's a big piece. I think in college sports coaching, I think that's where it goes wrong a lot. Belief systems don't align. So you
Mm.
can have two really great coaches that are on the same staff, but it doesn't work. Well,
Mm.
why doesn't it work? Because their belief system doesn't align. They believe in different things. Not that one is wrong or right.
Yeah, I
It's just
get, yep,
it doesn't work.
right.
I think that's hard to find. So for me, that's always been important. My family is super important. My family is part of our program. We have our players over to our house on a monthly basis. Shoot, my wife and youngest daughter were just here the other day, bringing cupcakes for like she's learning how to write her name. So the way she's learning how to write her name is on cupcakes for our players.
That's cute.
My kids learn math through our players' numbers.
Right.
But who am I to look at Dalton Wentz, one of our better players, when he's got all this opportunity in the portal? He can make more money in NIL or revenue share or whatever it is. Who am I to look at him and say, hey, stay here, believe in who we are, this is who we are when I'm looking to do something else. So loyalty has always been something that's been super important to me. I'm not saying I'll never leave.
Right. Right.
I think a lot of times it's taken out of your hands. If I'm being honest with you, I think in coaching, it's at some point you're going to get to a point where somebody's going to have a disagreement with how you go about it and who you are, and you're always at risk. Tomorrow, you're always at risk of getting fired. That's why you always try and do things the right way. And I sleep on the pillow every night knowing I'm doing that. So I think for me, that's been important, and that's what I've lived by. If you have something you love, the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
It's well said. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really great. Really like that. Couple of things here. Three more questions for you. One is, I can't remember the year if it was 19 or 20. That when I was at Sacred Heart, we came down and I think accidentally me, you, and Tom started talking about the Ironman, right?
Yep.
So I did an Ironman 70.3 in 2019, and I know that you guys did one together. What year did you guys do it?
That's a good question. Well, I'm trying to say 16 or 17. I think it was 17 because we went to a super in 17. So I've always I've always said that I was going to do another one because it guarantees you a super. But I think it was 17. We did Wilmington. Same thing, 70.3. Probably didn't do it the way you should do it, but again, there's lessons in it. I tell stories before games. I tell an Ironman story all the time. Every year, I tell an Ironman story. But one of the stories that I'll never forget, or one of the things I'll never forget about the Ironman, is that was the first time I ever did an open water swim.
Mm.
Um, so we're in
Had
an
you
open
not
water.
trained for it?
I
Oh,
trained in a pool.
right, right, right.
Pool's got
It's
a line.
totally different, man. Totally
Pool's
different.
got a line. It tells you where to go. Right?
Yes, yes, that's right.
I got into open water in the intercoastal waterway in Wilmington, North Carolina, and there was no line telling me which way to go. I didn't even think about it. And you're doing it. They do it in waves. You do it with a whole bunch of people, so you're
Of
getting
course.
kicked, punched. But I had 3 or 4 times where I had a guy on a surfboard tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, it's that way, buddy." So you learn a lot of lessons in an Ironman.
Yes. Yeah, you swam a little bit extra that day, didn't you?
I swam a little. I did not do the 1.2. It was not
No.
1.2. I promise you.
I'll tell you a quick swim story. Funny. So I did mine in Mont Tremblant, Canada. Okay. So I drive up there myself, and my wife and kids came up after, but I did it, went up early, and I go to the lake to learn the course and get in the water. And I'm telling you, it was a lake, but it was like the end of the world waves in this lake, right? And I get out of the water, and I say to everybody, like, is this what it's going to be? Like, I can't swim in this. I'm not trained for this, Nobody spoke English, everyone French. So I'm left with not knowing if this is what it's going to be. So the next day, where it's like the introduction of the whole event, they're now giving instructions in French and English. And finally somebody says, if the water is like it's been, we will not be able to do the water here because we're not going to let you out and out. And I go, thank God. Like, I thought it was just me that couldn't deal with that water. But yes, to your point, you get kicked, you get punched.
You're not ready
It's
for it.
Yeah, you're not ready for it. Exactly.
I got 2 other quick little Ironman stories.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the second thing you do after you swim, right, is you get on the bike. Well, you got a 56-mile-an-hour bike. So you do it in Wilmington. You do it on I-40. And what you don't understand on I-40 is there's really it's just trees on the side of the road. And you get about 20 miles into it and you look to your right and you're like, I think I saw that tree before. Like, have I moved? It's windy, right? is the second Ironman thing. The last Ironman thing I'll tell you is the swim. The other piece about it is I didn't realize the wetsuit piece. I tried it on, but you don't understand what a wetsuit can do to your body.
Yes.
It was not pleasant. I'll leave it at that.
No, yeah. I did a lot. I mean, mine was a few years later, and I did a lot of research on a lot of that stuff, and it was still just brutal to do. I mean, then just to run after you've done all those other things. I'm assuming from what you're describing, because I actually was signed up to do another one, and then COVID came, and I have yet to do another one. I'm assuming you or Tom have not done another
Yeah,
one.
no, actually, we did the same thing. We're signed up in COVID. COVID canceled it, and we have not done another one.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Um, Two more things then, which is I want to talk one recruiting thing, one coaching thing. We'll start with the coaching thing. You had obviously said your beliefs, you and Tom are on, kind of that same, um, you have the same principles and beliefs, but I want to get to you specifically. Like, do you have a coaching style? Is there a way that you go about, whether it's teaching, hitting, infield, or just coaching people in general? Like, have you ever sat down and thought, this is the way I do things? Or are you just Bill Cilento and I'm going to coach the way that I kind of my natural personality? Do you, like, if someone said, hey, I want to coach like you, would you tell them, hey, these are the things that I believe in?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that you believe in, but I think like when you talk about style, like you're talking about delivery, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's 2 things that I do. Number one is I'm going to try and be the best problem solver possible. Like I believe you track everything. Like I make everything competitive. We have standings. We compete every day in practice. You get a win or a loss. There's no practice that goes by where we don't do something where it's a competition, whether it's a 75-foot bunt game or even a BP, or if I have nothing planned in the practice, we're going to come in and play ping pong, right? And you all have different roles in that. So I think when you do that, when you track things, you figure out where people are deficient, right? You figure out what they do really well and where the low hanging fruit is. How can I help them get better? And I think as coaches, what I try and do is be an elite problem solver and just figure out what that is for each kid. The same thing applies to if I'm teaching a guy hitting, right? It's the competition is you against you.
Right.
So let's figure out where they're deficient. Is it a bat speed thing? Is it a direction thing? Is it, a ball flight thing? Is it a strike zone discipline? Is it a swing decision thing? Let's figure out where the low hanging fruit is and let's attack it. So I think that's kind of how I go about it. I try not to, one of my core beliefs is I'm never going to ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself.
Yep.
If we're going to get you up at 6 a.m. for a lift, I'm going to be there.
Right.
That's how it's
Right.
going to be. So I think what I try and do is become an elite problem solver. And I think I just try and build relationships, trusting relationships. Um, I'm, when you got to drop the hammer, when you got to hold someone, when you got to hold the line, you got to be able to do it. But I'm also going to try and be the guy that's there for you when you're struggling and pat you on the back. I mean, I think you got to meet kids where they are. I think you got to care about them. And if you do, you can get the world out of them.
Yeah, no, that's well said, and I really like that. The other thing then on the recruiting pieces, I guess it's a part A and part B. I've always said like it's in this day and age, it's not that difficult to tell who's got some talent, right? Who's got physicality, who can run, who's got some velo command, secondary stuff, a good hands. I'll say on the first question on that, is there any particular characteristic recruiting wise that you guys value, whether it's pitchers or position players? Like if you were sitting there with Auburn and Alabama and Vandy, and like, will you, Bill Cilento or Tom or the staff say, hey, we do value speed or we do value whatever it is? Does that question make sense? Is there something you guys particularly
No,
look for?
yeah, no. So here's what I believe. I believe there's a talent threshold you got to be above, right? I think the teams, there's a team talent threshold you got to be above, but an individual talent threshold that varies by position, right? Obviously, you want a more athletic kid in the middle of the field. Um, if you want a guy who you want guys who can strike guys out in different ways. You want all those things, but I think what separates them is the makeup piece above that.
Mm,
So what do I care deeply about? I care deeply about your value system. So how I go about recruiting is I literally just put out in the world who I am. I tell our players all the time, I'm the most consistent guy in your life. It's a joke, but it's not really. I send a text message to every one of those guys every single morning, some kind of message, some kind of video. And all I'm trying to do is make you understand exactly who I am, exactly what I believe. And here's what the net result of that is. So you get kids above that talent threshold, you treat them that way. The net result is they either look at you and go, you know what? This dude's crazy. I'm out on this dude. This dude's sending me text message at 5:30 in the morning every morning. I
right.
don't want any part of this. Right. All this guy talks about is competition, talks about team, talks about giving yourself to something bigger than yourself. That's all he talks about. That's not for me. Okay. I've solved I have my
Love
answer.
it.
But the flip side is you get kids that's what they believe. And when they believe that, it's a match. And they can't see themselves go anywhere else. But then you have to live it, right?
Right.
So I think that's the way I go about it every single day. Like, look, I am exactly who I am. That's what you're going to get, and that's what I try and be. There's no fake. There's no front. I'm not going to tell you I believe in something that we don't believe in. I'm not going to tell you we do something we don't do. I'm not going to sell you on a shiny object that we have around here that we don't use. That's a
Right.
waste of
Right.
time.
Yep.
Um, because I need you to get here, believe and know exactly who we are. So therefore, you're going to stay here for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
You're going to the reward for that is you're going to find the best man in your wedding. You're going to find all of these people that you look back on your college time and you say, "Hey, that was the greatest decision I ever made." I feel bad for the world that we're in because it almost incentivizes the guys to jump from school to school to school, chase the next dollar.
Yep.
I feel bad for them
I do.
because at the end of the day, you're going to get more money. You are. Um, but you're going to look back when you're done playing the game and you're going to lose that experience. And I think that's what makes college sports unique. That emotion that's tied to that ability to bust chops with your guy and have a half-hearted scenario when you're competing against each other.
Right. Right.
It doesn't happen when you trade uniforms. Very
Yeah. Yeah, I think many have said it on this podcast that the transfer portal and the NIL coming together, created this environment where it's almost like it's free agent all the time. And it's a shame. You're right. It's not what it's not what we grew up playing college sports with. It's not what we wanted to get in it for. And, and I like what you're saying. I like your style of sending these guys messages. So, you're getting guys that are guys that mesh with your style and what the program's about. So I really love that. This other one I always ask, and this kind of fascinates me. And I think this is where some people can learn. Um, how does a kid, so let's say there's a kid in, I don't know, Chicago, right? And he's good he's got the skills.
We get some real good Chicago kids come
There
there
you
right
go.
now.
Perfect. That's perfect then. So he's got the talent. So let's say there's kids in this country that have the talent to Wake Forest, because that's first step. 90% of them that are playing high school baseball aren't good enough to play at Wake. Let's let people in on that, because most people don't realize how incredibly talented every level of college baseball is, but much less at a Wake Forest. But I'm always fascinated with how does this kid in Chicago connect with Wake Forest? So what are the ways that first the kid that's an unknown goes to a known by your staff? Is it camps? Is it a straight up email? Is it a recommendation? What would it be? What are some of the methods that kids get on your radar to you for even to start evaluating to see if they're good enough for your program?
I think any and all, I think camp's a big part of, what we do. I mean, you look at our roster, I'd say, 50%, maybe more than that have come through our camps. Big part of it. Sure.
Yep.
I think trusting people and recommendations I get from trusting people. Yeah, it's absolutely a part. I mean, an easy story is Nick Kurtz. Again, I hate to get back to the AL. I mean, you got to brag about him, right? He's the AL
Of
rookie of the year,
course.
right?
Of course.
But Nick Kurtz came to Wake Forest because we wanted Josh Hartle. Josh Hartle was a left-hander up the street who's in Double-A right now. He's going to be a big leaguer, and he played 12U Team USA with Josh Hartle. And I was talking to the coach, ironically, a Chicago guy who coached him with 12U Team USA, and called him to say, "Hey, thanks for the help. Josh Hartle's coming to Wake." I said, "Who are we missing the boat on?" He said, "Nick Kurtz."
Look at that.
So why did we recruit Nick Kurtz? Because of that.
Right.
Rhett Lauder, I sat in Lake Point down in Atlanta. I sat during a rain delay, I sat in a Longhorn Steakhouse, and across the bar, I wasn't drinking, I was eating, but across the bar was a coach that I trusted in the area. And he just looked at me and said, "Do you like winning?" And I was like, "Yeah, coach, I like winning." And he goes, "Well, we tracked Rhett Lauder. He's 49-1 between high school and summer ball with us. Why aren't you recruiting him?"
Wow.
So,
Love that.
first rounder. I mean, you're talking about the fourth overall pick and the seventh overall pick right there. You're talking about multimillionaires right now. So I mean, those are when I look back and I always try and evaluate when it doesn't work with a kid.
Right.
I always try and evaluate, and I say, okay, where did we miss? Where did this go wrong? How could we have done this better? Because it's not good for us. And it's not good for the kid.
Right.
It's not good in either side there. So where do we miss, and how can I make sure that doesn't happen again? And what you find is when you have those kinds of conversations, when you spend that time on the backside, you rarely miss. The fit
Right.
almost always works out.
Right.
So that recommendation piece is a big piece, but it's got to be unsolicited in some ways. Where we've missed a lot of times is when I've just gone and seen a kid and they've been incredibly talented. When I've looked at a list and that kid's way up the list, and I've let the emotion internally, my emotion of, "Hey, this kid's super talented," allow me to make a mistake. So I'm very careful of that. I spend a lot of time vetting players. And the easiest way I can vet players is get a kid on campus, whether it's through a camp, a visit, whatever it is, and put them with our players.
Yeah, that's
Because
well said.
those guys know who they want to go to war with. Those guys know who's a winner and who they want in the dugout with. I can tell you time and time again, everybody thinks it's cliche. There's a super talented kid this fall, one of the most talented kids in the country. And my conversations with him on the phone were elite. He told me everything I wanted to hear all the time. You got to be cautious with those kind of kids. But he came on his visit, and I'll never forget, one of our players came right up to me and he said, "Coach, not it." And I ask our guys to do that because I need to know that. And that will help propel us over time, right? We'll get more of the right kids in the room. They'll buy into each other. And here's the goal at the end of the day: for our program to be what it is, it's player led. It's not coach fed all the time, right?
Right.
So those guys are the ones that have the greatest stake in our program.
Yeah, they're around the players more than the coaches are, right? So yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, and I'm sure this happens. I would do this in my coaching career. I'm sure you would do it. If you have a kid that you hear about from that's in high school now, and it goes to the same high school as one of the kids on the current roster, I would imagine you would go to the kid on the team and say, "Hey, I just heard about a kid a year behind you in high school. What do you think about him?" And if he goes, "Kick a play, awesome kid," all right, you'll go further. If he goes, "I don't know, coach, you probably, I don't think you're gonna like this kid. He's not a good kid." You're gonna stop right there. I mean, kids know kids, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great
The
point there.
old Northeast coach, Ed Blankmeyer. Blanky's one of the best
Oh,
coaches I've
I
ever.
just had Ty on. I just
Oh
had
yeah.
Ty on.
So
Yeah.
so Blanky used to say it all the time. Blanky used to say, "Hey, look, some of the best recruits you ever get are the ones you don't get,"
Mm,
and for that exact reason.
yeah. All right. My last question, since we're up against the time here. You've been so great all along. You probably answered this question 50 times, but I usually end with this, which is any advice for the like a developing 15, 16-year-old sophomore, junior, or I could also ask it if you could tell, sophomore, junior Bill Cilento something that you've learned over your life that you wish you would have done better when you were younger. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. So here's what I'd say is I think the new rules in college and how it works have allowed this opportunity that you can seize if you're willing to. And that opportunity is you no longer need to chase exposure at young ages.
Hmm.
You don't need exposure in the seventh, eighth, ninth, even 10th grade. No college can make a decision then on who you are. The only exposure you're getting there is exposure to something external that's going to put you on a rankings board or whatever it is.
Right.
I suggest you take that money, whatever you would spend there, and invest in yourself. And the other advice I'd give you, and what do I mean by invest in yourself? I'll backtrack on that a second, is like buy into nutrition, buy into getting stronger, buy into, recovery modalities, whatever it is that are going to help you get feel better when you do play. Second piece of advice I'd give you is do really hard things, seek failure, and treat it as a way to learn,
Hmm.
right? Find older players and play with them and be okay with not being the best player there. Struggle, adapt. You won't struggle anymore over time. Everybody this time of year, for example, all these college guys are going home. Well, they're going to throw live at bats to someone. If I'm a ninth or a 10th grader, so what? Go in there and get a live at bat against that guy, right? That's your opportunity to learn. So I think you can seek struggle. You can also seek struggle in other ways. Play other sports, play pickup basketball, do any of that stuff. Seek struggle because I think you can separate yourself by becoming the best version of yourself and becoming a winner and learning what it takes to do that. You know, I'll close it with this. Like when I go to a game, the first thing I try and decide is who is the player on the field that the game revolves around.
Hmm.
And what you find out when you look at it from that lens is so many times it's not the most talented player. So many times it's somebody else.
Hmm.
And I don't ever want to recruit someone that the game doesn't revolve around them.
Hmm. I like that.
And what I mean by that isn't the antics, the double celly, any of
Right,
that. I don't
right,
mean by
right.
that. What I mean by that is they're the energy of the team. If they're the energy of the team and you get enough of those guys together, you tend to be pretty good.
Yeah, that's really well said. I like that a lot. Bill, you're the man. I really appreciate you spending this time with me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was really, really awesome. I'm so happy we could do it. And actually, Friday, if it goes according to schedule, my next one on the podcast is Joey Hammond.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Himbo.
Exactly,
They can
exactly.
hit, man. They can bang.
Yeah, they can, exactly. All right, buddy. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Game Plan Podcast by College Baseball Advisors. Today, again, we had Bill Cilento, Associate Head Coach from Wake Forest University. Hope you enjoyed this really informative conversation. I'd like to remind you that this podcast is made possible through the generous sponsorship of the World Baseball Coaches Convention, which is in its 23rd year. It takes place at the awesome Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. Those that go know how awesome it is, and they go back year after year. But if you have not been, you owe it to yourself to go to this great venue, meet awesome baseball people from high school to college to professional coaches in a great format. Great, main areas of speaking, but there's breakout rooms and there's Q&A periods and there's a batting cage demonstration and a live demo infield and there's vendors and there's a coaches social. Just an awesome event. This year it's January 15th to 17th, 2026. For more information about that, please visit baseballcoachesclinic.com. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the podcast when we have Joey Hammond, head baseball coach at High Point. Thank you.